call the June 29, 2021 call council meeting to order, and I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Ms. Walden.
Here.
Mr. Reynolds.
Here.
Dr. Lee.
Here.
Dr. Lee. Here.
Here.
Mr. Chambers.
Here.
Mr. Mullins.
Here.
Ms. Shinholster.
She's on her way. We do have a quorum present and can continue at this time. We are calling this meeting to order together to consider a few time-sensitive items that we need to take care of before July 13th, our July 13th meeting. The first is to amend the budget to add and finance a position to Public Works Department. I will ask the clerk to please read ordinance O-2106-09 by caption.
An ordinance to make amendments to the 2021-2022 annual operating budget beginning July 1, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022.
This time I need a motion to see if I need a motion to suspend the rules in reference to the ordinance O-2106-09.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we allow the suspension of the rules for the consideration of the ordinance.
Need a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion has been properly motion and second. Is there a motion to adopt the ordinance?
Motion to adopt.
Well, I need to
You
vote.
call
I'm
the
sorry, I
roll.
need to vote on it. Ready. So this is for the suspension of the rules. Ms. Walden.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Dr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Chambers.
Aye.
Mr. Mullins.
Aye.
Ms. Shinholster.
Aye.
So we just did a motion to suspend the rules to adopt, to amend the budget. Is there a motion to adopt the ordinance?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Is there any discussion? I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Ms. Walden.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Dr. Lee. I saw that. Mr. Chambers.
Aye.
Mr. Mullins.
Aye.
Ms. Shinholster.
I'm going to abstain since I don't know what you're talking about.
Don't matter.
Do we need to go back over that?
I haven't seen it yet. Let's go. That's good.
Okay.
I didn't get my book.
The ordinance is adopted. I will ask the clerk to read Resolution R-2106-22 by caption.
A resolution of the City of Milledgeville, Georgia, creating a youth council.
You have heard the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
I want to ask a question about it. Is this going to cost the city any money or?
You will have to put budget, it will be budgeted from the city like you had in a previous time when Mayor Bentley was here and you had to budget some income for the youth council. I did talk with Mr. Griffin in reference to it, and he stepped out. See what it come, give it a moment, let him come back and
Okay.
explain what percentage we're gonna put out for the youth council. In the ordinance, it should read how many students we're gonna have, how we're gonna go about doing the application process, and then what roles they're gonna play, which they'll mimic each one of us, the city manager, the city attorney. Each student will represent, I think we gotta have one at large, and so that will be someone that is, can also be an alternate if one of the students was to drop out for whatever the reason may be. It's inclusive of our local high school students, so there's no, it's gotta be this school, that school. It includes all high school students. And let him walk back in to tell us exactly what the budgeting process is.
Who basically gonna be overseeing these?
What it requires is that we have someone to oversee it. At the time, I think when we did the resolution, we put the mayor down. Is that correct, Mr. Griffin? But it actually calls, they would like to see, GMA would like to see somebody from the city being a representation of it. And so in talking with Mr. Griffin, I think Mr. Griffin had identified a person that he would like to put over it to oversee it, but then there again, you know, they'll come in every meeting, they'll do what we do, watch everything that we do as they did in the past when Richard Bentley was here.
Well, I don't have no problem with that, but you know, it's a little time consuming. We, you know, everybody have other occupations and things like that, so who gonna put the time in? That's what I'm wondering.
Well, actually, Mr. Mullins, I have the time to put in,
As long you take on responsibility,
Yeah.
it's solely on you.
yes, sir, I have the time to put in, and then basically they'll come in and watch, you know, they'll sit like the college.
I know what I'm saying, but other
Yeah.
activities, that's all. As long as you say it's solely on you,
Yes, sir, I'll
Okay.
take that responsibility.
okay?
Mr. Griffin, Ms. Walden has a question as how we're gonna fund, and I shared with her, you and I had a conversation, she wanna know the percentage that we're gonna fund and how we're gonna fund that.
But before you speak, Mr. Griffin, not trying to be, but you had a motion.
Right.
And on the floor,
Oh.
we need a second, and then we can have discussion.
But I didn't hear the who made
I made the motion when she called for it.
Okay, so I
We
need
have to
go back
get to
and
that
okay, let me go
part
back
first.
and ask for the motion, on this ordinance, please.
got the motion? I need a second.
Okay, I think Mr. Chambers seconded it.
Chamber,
I
okay.
can't see anybody, they're behind us tonight, okay,
Steve, did you say?
Yes.
He did.
okay.
Now we can open it up for discussion.
Right.
Thank you. I can't see.
You want me to
anything.
answer now?
Yes, please. Give an answer, please.
I didn't want
Yeah.
that to die.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Shinhos. I appreciate that. I always have somebody to catch me. That's what the glove is for.
I realize that I did not hook y'all's monitors up in front of y'all tonight. I apologize
That's
for that.
okay.
It's okay.
But this resolution and the council in general, based on the information that the mayor shared with me, will be very much patterned after Dublin's youth council, which has been very active, I think, for at least maybe 3 years, maybe longer than that. And I've requested from our Tiffany, who is now with GMA, but was with Dublin when their youth council was started, to please send me 3 years of their budget so I can see what they were budgeting for. She did tell me that the last year that she's gonna send me is really high, because they actually budgeted for their youth council to go to the National League of Cities meeting that year. I don't think we will be doing that, at least this first year. So I don't see it as a percentage as much as I do as of a dollar amount. And until I get those budgets, I don't really know what we're looking at. But I and this is just purely conjecture on my part, but I would suspect that we're looking at $8,000 to $10,000 probably to get the youth council up and running. And we would need to amend the budget again in order to be able to add that after July 1. So.
Well, the chamber had it at one time. Do they still have the youth council? Because they went, when we were going to St. Simon, they had the youth council to come and they were in charge of it. Is that still in place?
I believe they have a youth leadership program.
Yeah, that's
what they have.
That's usually.
And but that was patterned after the adult leadership program, and I think both of those have been revived by the chamber in the last 2, maybe 3 years. I know that I actually spoke to the youth leadership group for the last, in 2017 and 18. So they do still have it, but that's patterned after the leadership program for the chamber as opposed to for council.
What legal liability do we assume in the creation of this youth council?
Well, I guess it would depend on what's envisioned that they're going to be doing. I mean, obviously, they're not making any decisions that impact the city of Milledgeville, of course. But like I said, Dublin went to the big convention.
National League of Cities.
They
National League
actually
of
went the year I went.
Cities. You know, if they begin to engage in that kind of activity, then what you would typically assume as liability issues would be no different than probably schools. The band goes to
Yeah.
wherever they go. I mean,
Sure, any sort of overnight
Philadelphia,
field
wherever
trip. Sure,
wherever my daughters went.
right.
And those kind of things. But I think if it's going to be incumbent upon, mayor and council and anybody else that's involved in it to make sure that things are done in the right way.
And Mr. Griffin and I asked that question of him, that if, I think it's September, they're going to hold a symposium in Dublin for the youth council. And so I asked him, if we have our group together, can we take them in a city vehicle? And he said what we probably would more likely do was get together and rent a van and take them, and that way they're, all in one place. We're responsible for them that way. And I guess with the funding that we set aside, that's how we'll be able to do certain things of that nature. Now, I went to the National League of Cities when Dublin took theirs, and that was in California, and I was there that year. And they not only them, I think Stockbridge, all of the groups up towards the Atlanta way were there that year because they're very active with their youth council. So the hope is to be active with ours and to give our kids a greater appreciation for government and what they do on a day-to-day basis. What we do on a day-to-day basis, they learn. And I believe the sooner the better that we learn to encourage them about government. And I'm hoping not just, Ms. Shinholster will be helping out. I'm hoping Mr. Reynolds, if your time presents, because you deal with the youth a lot. We know Georgia College will be having their students come back. We talked about maybe getting with a few of them. I know they're going to have GC Gives because they've already called me in reference to it. So we'll have a plethora of help with it. It's just teaching them the day-to-day operations of government. So, Ms. Walden, did that answer your question, what you want to know?
Yeah, I know years back, we would go to the school, and I helped them with it, and we would set up a council in the classroom. The teachers would let us know when the class come up, and we would go to the school and let them, we'd give them, I know one of ours was about a dog barking was the complaint. And we put friends of each other on each side, and they had to sit there and listen and didn't know which way to vote. It was quite funny, but anyway, we did it on a volunteer type thing.
And they still have that, Ms. Walden, because I think I've went a couple of times. Ms. Denise, did you go? You went also to the school.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so anytime
Several
they have that,
times.
if you want to go, I'll let you know. But
They did it,
yeah.
and it was nice.
Yeah, they're still doing it, Ms. Walden, with the
Government class.
government classes.
At several points throughout this, it references the official bylaws of the Youth Council. Do we have a draft of those that we could review?
We do. The way the resolution reads, those would be approved by the Youth Council themselves, but we do have a draft that would be presented to the Youth Council, and it's the ones that are used with Dublin. GMA has a guidebook on youth councils, and I think just about every youth council in the state, the bylaws are in that guidebook that I have as a PDF, but the ones that the mayor has looked at specifically are the ones from Dublin. So yes, the answer to your question is yes, we do.
I would just like to have the opportunity to review any bylaws that would be potentially passed on to the council for them to approve, since it's incorporated here by reference.
Yeah, could you
Mhm.
send that PDF out?
And the reason we have it on tonight, as I stated, the last meeting is simply of timing. Time is of the essence, making sure the kids get ready to go back to school, trying to get the application out to the schools. Mr. Griffin had a group this morning, the YES program, that came through, so he was able to tell them. I think a teacher asked the question to Mr. Griffin in reference to what we do as a council and what we do for the students. So that gave us an opportunity to put it out to the Baldwin County school system, I know, because they have the YES program. Is there any other discussion on it at this time? Dr. Lee, Mr.
And you're gonna be the one to head it up and take responsibility for it, right?
Yes, ma'am, and Ms. Shinholster, you're gonna help it as well. And Ms. Walden, you're welcome to step in whenever
I
you
mean,
can.
I'll do what I can, but I don't want it to be the head of it.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, one thing, I know this is not about that, but I'd like to also do like the city of Norcross. They have a senior council as well.
Okay.
Senior advisory board.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the next step.
It's something we can look at based on our AARP
Uh-huh.
certification.
A senior advisory board too, so that will put it on
On
both
both
ends of the
sides.
spectrum, and
Right,
we'll be
right.
caught in the middle.
Right.
We're going to have more advice than we know what to do with, though.
But they see things that we don't see though sometimes because they're out and about.
Well, and Ms. Shinholster, you make a good opportunity there for discussion of how formal this youth council is. I mean, could we perhaps consider a youth advisory board as opposed to, because I mean, while I appreciate the efforts to try to mimic what we do here, I think that the formality of that probably presents a lot of additional work on our behalf, and especially on yours if you're going to be heading this, Mayor. That's a lot for you to shoulder, to try to organize a whole second council. Would it be more beneficial to us to consider doing something like a youth advisory board, a senior advisory board, something that doesn't have voting and nominations and appointments and all that, something we could perhaps go to each of the schools and ask principals to provide us with some students that can be a part of this advisory board? Because I just wonder about things like this calls for elections or appointments. You know, if it's an appointment, appointed by whom? And if it's an election, then how do we ensure that students, not only in our public and our privates, but also independent students that are learning at home, you know, how are they provided equal access to be a part of this?
And that was one of the things Mr. Griffin and I talked about. I think even in the bylaws, we stated that the students that are at home, that are homeschooling, can also be a part. And so, I mean, I think if we go ahead and put this together, and then as Ms. Shinholster said, we add that senior advisory council, we got to start somewhere and get it together. And I think if we start somewhere based on the bylaws that we have in place and look at it, and Mr. Griffin, you're going to get them a copy of the bylaws, okay? And we'll just take it from there. If that's okay with you.
Well, Madam Mayor, I wish you Godspeed in assemblage of this.
Well, it's going to work. I promise you.
This resolution does not reference whether or not mayor and council would have approval of the bylaws. So that may be something that you want to consider. Probably at the same time you're considering in a budget amendment, you'll want to consider having final say over what those bylaws provide.
Much like we do with any other board.
Envisions bylaws, but it doesn't envision as to who is going to, the youth council, if that is approved, can draw those bylaws. But I think they probably, particularly where city dollars are being spent, they're probably going to want, you probably need to have those bylaws come to you to say grace over.
Yeah, they need to have our blessing.
Right. And I think everybody pretty much, from what Mr. Griffin and I have read, Mr. Jordan, they pretty much follow the GMA guidelines with the bylaws, I guess because of GMA's concept of putting together, and then we bring it back to everyone.
Yeah, I just think it's a matter of having the process being the youth council, if it's appointed and created, they can create their bylaws, but I think they would need to submit them to mayor and council for approval where there's funds being expended. We have, with any of our secondary agencies, we have reviewed their bylaws with Allied Arts and
Everybody.
so forth. Mr.
Okay.
Jarrett made sure of that.
So what am I hearing? We're going to just put this on the table tonight and then let Mr. Griffin get you all a copy of the bylaws and read.
So that we'll have a chance to read them.
Yeah, if that is the bylaws that are going to be adopted, the ones I looked at envision the counts, the youth council actually adopting the bylaws. Once they adopt them, then they should be submitted to mayor and council for mayor and council's approval.
Okay.
Very, very quickly, can we go over how these individuals are selected? I've heard two things, one appointment and another vote. So which is it?
Well, actually, we're gonna have an application process. The application process will go through the schools, and then we'll come back and determine how we kind of, I'm not gonna say weed out, but how we go through and be selective in the process of the council itself. So once all of the applications are resubmitted to us, we'll look at it based on grade, based on, according to the bylaws, it should be their grades, it should be how they, their conduct in school, being active, making sure that they're gonna be committed to coming in. I think, Ms. Griffin, did we say 2 years? Well, we're gonna try to do it for 2 years, or we're going 2 years rather than doing it the 4, so they get a chance to do, if it's a 4-year term that we're all sitting in, they'll do the first 2 years with us, and then we'll move on to another group 2 years later, is how we looked at doing it.
It's, the resolution says 2 years.
Did I answer your question? I hate to have my back turned to you, but did I answer your question, Mr. Chambers?
Well, I can't tell that you have your back turned to me, so that's okay.
I'm sorry.
I see the front of you, so
okay.
I apologize if I'm speaking from behind.
Okay, I just happened to turn around and look back and saw you all. Okay. So,
Madam Mayor, in the interest of answering the questions that have been placed on the table, and I certainly appreciate the expediency with which you would like to get this program started, I certainly hope that there's a tremendous interest in this program, that we have a slate of candidates to be able to sort through, and hopefully there'll be a rousing election in the fall. But given the number of questions that are presently on the table, I would humbly ask one of my peers to withdraw their second or their motion so that we could table this issue for a later vote.
does anyone?
I guess my question is how much later are we talking about? Because I think we have to get some things done, don't we, Hank, or Mayor? There's some things that need to be done.
And you gotta get all this in the GMA, which I think you've already reached out to Tiffany, but I know it has to go to the Georgia Municipal Association, that we gotta get this in. So that's why I said we're looking at a time-sensitive resolution here, because, they go back to school August the 4th. And so here it is, might as well say July 1 already. And by the time we get everything together, get the applications to the different schools, or at least advertise it for them to know that this is going to take place at the city of Milledgeville.
Because the bylaws will be a different issue altogether, am I right? So
According to what Mr. Jordan
that
said.
we could still deal with the way we need to, but as far as just the organization and getting it out there that we're going to get started with this, there's some time restraints on that.
Fair enough. Well, in that case, I would ask that we make an amendment that the council have approval of any bylaws.
And I will second the amendment.
Okay, it's been properly motioned that we amend the resolution to
amend the resolution to provide council approval and oversight of the youth council bylaws.
Okay, so it's been properly motioned and second. Clerk, please call the roll on that. I know how to break yours down. Let me do it lengthy.
Ms. Walden,
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds,
Aye.
Dr. Lee, Mr. Chambers,
Aye.
Mr. Mullins,
Aye.
Ms. Shinholster.
Aye.
And then I suppose to the question of the creation. We have the motion of the second. We need to Now vote for the approval of
Right,
the
I
resolution.
thought you were saying something.
No, I was just,
Thought you was asking another question. So at this
No, ma'am.
time, I need a motion and a second to vote for the approval of the amendment of the resolution.
We actually already have a motion and a second. So it's time to
Disapproval.
call for the vote. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
At this time, I'll call for the official vote to approve the resolution for the.
Right, that's what we're doing now. We're approving, okay.
As
Yes.
amended.
as amended.
As amended.
And I will send that amendment to everybody by the end of the day tomorrow
Thank you, sir.
in terms of what that
And you're gonna send us the bylaws?
And a
verbiage will
motion.
be. Yes.
Have you called? You ready? Uh-huh.
Ms. Walden,
I,
Mr. Reynolds,
Aye.
Dr. Lee, Mr. Chambers,
Aye.
Mr. Mullins,
All right.
Ms. Shinholster.
Aye.
The resolution is approved with the proper amendments and is adopted as official.
I have one last question. Please, from behind me. Okay. And that is the essence of time. That I'm having a hard time understanding that. What time are we trying to meet?
We're trying to meet the August deadline of the students being back in school and everything being properly sent in for GMA so that they can recognize that we have established a youth council here, and then being able to put us on the road for the symposium, other things that might come up with the youth council. So that's the time frame that we're working with right now.
Okay, so I guess my question is, are we trying to meet a August 1 deadline, or are we trying to, the only reason I'm asking this is because most kids, and I'm assuming we're talking about maybe freshmen or high school age kids, most kids, it takes at least 2 weeks to settle down. And I just didn't know whether or not you're trying to get this in right as they walk in the door, or it's to get it as, sometime in August, maybe to be established by the 1st of September, or the mid-September, or something of that nature. That's my question.
Yes, sir. I'm trying to shoot for at least an August 15 deadline to have everything is, and you're correct to write. Someone that works with children, Dr. Lee, we know how those first couple of weeks of school are. That's why I'm trying to.
It take a whole month, really.
You sure a month, Dr. Lee? I think sometimes a half of a year. But the thing is, we got to go ahead and get the application out, Mr. Chambers, get everything in, get everybody acclimated to what we are doing, and hopefully, most of your students that are freshmen or sophomores, juniors, seniors, whatever, that are interested, those are going to be the ones that I would say they're just so advanced that their schedules, they can almost collaborate around a college schedule. And so it won't be as hard for them to fit in versus some other students.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, the next thing on the agenda is the Central State Hospital Local Redevelopment Authority has requested of the city of Milledgeville and Baldwin County each to adopt resolutions showing support for a request for the federal funding to help fund some of the cost prohibitive projects that challenge redevelopment efforts. We received this request very recently, and Baldwin County Board of Commissions is scheduled to vote and adopt their resolution tonight, from what I understand, not next week, but tonight. Mr. Griffin, I see this down there. If it is the will of this body to show our support, and it is our support to them at Central State Hospital Authority and the redevelopment efforts, an adoption of resolution of support tonight, we will need to first amend the agenda to add it if, and secondly, we will need to vote to authorize support, a support resolution to be drafted. Does the chair hear a motion to amend the agenda to add the authorization of a resolution of the Central State Hospital Redevelopment Authority?
So moved.
second.
Second.
Is there any questions?
I have a question. with this ordinance, what's the difference from doing an ordinance and have a letter written in support?
The resolution.
Resolution.
This is a resolution. That's probably a better question, Dr. Lee, for when we get to the resolution. Right now, the question on the floor is whether we're going to amend the agenda to consider that resolution.
Okay.
Does the chair hear a motion to amend the agenda to add the authorization of a resolution of the support for the Central State Hospital Redevelopment Authority?
That motion has already been made.
Made, and I
Second.
second.
I'm ready to call the vote.
Ready to
Ready
call
to
for
call
the
the roll?
vote?
Okay.
Ms. Walden,
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds,
Aye.
Dr. Lee, Mr. Chambers,
Aye.
Mr. Mullins,
Aye.
Ms. Shinholster.
Aye.
All right, the agenda is duly amended. Do I hear a motion to authorize that a resolution be drafted that would show the City of Milledgeville support to the Central State Hospital Local Redevelopment Authority in their efforts to gain federal funding for building mitigation, demolition, and making site-ready lots?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Ms. Walden,
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds,
Aye.
Dr. Lee,
Aye.
Mr. Chambers,
Amen.
Mr. Mullins,
Aye.
Ms. Shinholster.
Aye.
All right, finally, we have the need to go into closed session tonight to discuss personnel and legal matters. Do I hear a motion?
Motion we go into executive session.
Second.
All right, this time we'll move to the closed session in executive chambers. Once over, we'll move back into the council's chambers.
We need a vote to go
Okay,
into closed
okay.
session.
Oh God, I'm at the wrong place. Call the roll. Clerk, please call the roll this time.
Ms. Walden,
Aye.
That was it.
Mr. Reynolds,
Aye.
Dr. Lee,
Aye.
Mr. Chambers,
Aye.
Mr. Mullins,
Aye.
Ms. Shinholster.
Aye.
All right, at this time we'll move to closed session in executive chambers, and once over, we'll move back to the council chamber. Closed session, no actions was taken at the time pending personnel matter and legal actions. So this time, clerk, you're gonna call the roll to go back into open session.
Motion second.
Can I have a motion to go back into regular session, please? And a second.
Motion to exit the executive session.
Need a second.
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Walden,
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds,
Aye.
Dr. Lee,
She
said
said
aye.
aye. I don't know if you can hear.
I heard her. I heard her.
Chambers,
Here.
Mr. Mullins,
Here.
Ms. Shinholster.
One of those two.
We're here, we approve it.
Well, we're calling the roll.
So this concludes the items on the agenda for tonight. What I would like to remind council is that as of tomorrow, the ordinance resolution for us to be doing Zoom calls or will end per the governor's orders tomorrow. And they will not be renewed unless I declare or council declare an emergency situation for 14 days. And then we will have to renew it again for 14 more days.
Under our charter, we can only renew it at 14 days.
14
at a
days.
time.
And at this time, you can only miss, or you can only do 2 meetings
If you have,
with a doctor's
if you
excuse.
have a doctor, according to the open meetings law, if you have a doctor's excuse relative to why you cannot attend the meetings in person, the open records, open meetings law will allow that individual to continue to participate, it uses obviously, it doesn't use the word Zoom, it uses the word teleconference for the meetings. If you do not have that physician statement, then you have basically any of you can miss 2 meetings a year. It's not missing, you can participate by teleconference officially. And the caveat to that is that you have to have a quorum in person.
Okay.
So if we had, the 3 people participating by teleconference, we would not be able to
Have a meeting.
have a meeting because we wouldn't have a in-person
Quorum. Okay. Okay. Everybody clear on that one? Mr. Chambers and Dr. Lee, were you able to hear that? Because I look like they
Yeah.
got it. Mr. Chambers.
I heard you.
Chambers gave me a
Oh, okay. I can't see him, so that's why I'm having to turn around.
a thumbs up.
Okay.
Edge y'all's monitors while I was waiting on you.
All right. So is there anything else to discuss, or anybody have an announcement? We know Mr. Griffin sent out in reference to Chief Wolf dying this morning. So I think everybody got that memo on that. Ma'am?
Mayor, can I just mention that if everyone could let me know about the email about the Monday meeting that I sent out yesterday, because I need to, I have found a location. I need to let them know something tomorrow.
Okay.
I emailed you today. Got mine. Okay.
Everybody else email back in reference to GMA and the meeting.
I should have emailed on behalf of Mr. Mullins too, because he's not.
Ms. Minton, is that?
I'm gonna do it old fashioned. I'm gonna tell
Yeah,
you.
we send out, Steve,
You'll be there, right?
for Monday if you can.
I'll be there, Hank.
Okay.
I'm gonna do, and Boo and I both will be.
All right.
All right. If there's nothing else to announce or discuss, I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Meeting adjourned.
Hey, have you all heard back?